Welcome to Live with Marketers, LinkedIn's first talk show for marketers by marketers. I'm your host, Alex Rinn, and a content marketer here at LinkedIn. In today's episode, which is brand awareness versus lead gen, battle or balance, we're going to be discussing how marketers can measure brand awareness, the potential danger of only focusing on lead gen, tips for effective full funnel marketing, examples of successful brand awareness campaigns, and a lot more. And we're also going to have a Q&A at the end, so hold your questions. But before we get started, I want to kind of highlight a couple of housekeeping details. So we will be sending out the full recording with additional resources after the event, so don't worry about taking too many notes. We've added several additional resources to check out on actually the On24 console, including best practices for brand marketing and lead gen on the LinkedIn platform. As I mentioned before, we're also doing the live Q&A at the end of the discussion, so please submit any questions you have directly into the On24 console throughout, and we'll just try and get to as many as we can at the very end when we have about 10 minutes or so left. And then for my social media butterflies, you can also follow along on LinkedIn and Twitter using hashtag #LiveWithMarketers. Finally, if you have to drop early, please take the time to fill out our very brief survey so we know how we did and how we can make these shows better in the future. So now let's get to the show. I want to introduce my guests here. I'm so happy that they're here today. We have Heidi Bullock, CMO of Engagio, and Evie Wilkins, VP of Marketing at Tracker. Thank you guys so much for being here. I'd love it if each of you could kind of just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your company and what you do, and something that's not on your LinkedIn profile.
Sure, I'll start. So my name is Heidi Bullock, CMO of Engagio. We are an account-based marketing platform, and we help marketers really at all sizes of company help really understand, act, and measure their account-based data. So it's been a pretty great product so far. Something people don't know about me on LinkedIn is I won a motocross race.
Wow. Wouldn't have expected that one. Super impressive.
Indeed, very impressive. I'm Evie Wilkins. I'm the VP of Marketing at Tracker. It's an influencer marketing platform, so we help some of the world's largest brands run massive global influencer programs, including L'Oreal, Samsung, and LinkedIn. Something that is not on my LinkedIn profile, but it is on my driver's license, and that is my middle name is Rainbow.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's a good
That's
one.
cool.
And something that's not on my LinkedIn profile, because I might as well share it too, right, is that I have a very extensive jacket collection, and I normally always wear a different jacket on the show, but today I'm not, because as the marketing landscape changes, so do my wardrobe choices. So we're going to do kind of a quick fire to get to know our lovely guests better. So if you guys are game, I can ask you a couple of questions.
Yeah,
okay.
We're game.
All right, cool. And we'll start with Evie. As a marketer, what keeps you up at night?
Hiring, finding that next talent to join our team, definitely something I lose sleep over.
Okay.
Hiring and hitting our pipeline goals.
Okay. Who would play you in the movie of your life?
I would love for Tina Fey, if she's listening, great, to play me.
Shout out to Tina Fey if you're listening. Cool. Oh, wait, did you say who?
No, I'm going to go with Cameron Diaz. We both have big teeth.
Okay.
And if you're listening.
Okay. Lovely. Okay, In-N-Out or Five Guys?
In-N-Out.
Okay.
Pancho Villa. I'm tacos all the way.
What is Pancho Villa? That wasn't an option, Heidi.
I can't help it. I'm pro tacos.
Okay. I mean, fair enough. Fair enough. What are you binge watching right now?
I am eagerly awaiting for the next season of Chef's Table. I find that cooking shows really calm me down and help me get that sleep back that I'm losing over the hiring.
Totally.
I'm true detective all the way.
Okay.
Yeah, it's great.
Awesome. Okay, so now we're actually going to go to a poll question because I'm curious to hear about who's tuned in today so that we can kind of maybe tailor our conversation more geared to that. So the question for you is, what type of marketer are you? And you actually have to click on the slide tab to see the poll question. So just click to the slide tab. What type of marketer are you? The options are brand marketer, demand gen marketer, content marketer, event marketer, higher ed marketer, healthcare marketer, or none of the above. So I'll give you a couple of seconds just to answer, and then we'll see who's on the line today. While we're waiting, can you guys kind of identify like what do you see yourself as? Like, what kind of marketer do you identify as?
Yeah, I think as a CMO, it's kind of each of those a little bit every day. And I think some days might be heavier, maybe with content marketing, especially if I'm reviewing a book that we just wrote, or other days I feel like if I'm working a lot with the sales team, it's very, very demand gen focused. But I think most marketers today, you're doing a lot of those things.
Yeah.
But so for me in a CMO role, it's all of them.
Okay. Yeah. I agree. I think like most marketers are hybrid marketers these days, and you kind of have to have your hand in everything to be good at it holistically. So.
And definitely you should appreciate all the other roles too. That'll just give you just a better, ability to do your job.
Yeah, having like solid cross-functional partners.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's check out the results. It looks like the majority of people on the line are brand marketers, followed by demand gen, then content, event, higher ed, and healthcare. Okay, got it. So lots of brand folks on the line. Very excited about that. And thanks for being here. And we hope that we can help your company with some of their challenges. And speaking of challenges, in a recent study from HubSpot, they found that generating leads is actually the #1 pain point. So we're just hoping that this is something that we can shed some more light on today. So let's start with the basics. Just for everyone who's out there that's watching, like, what is brand awareness to you, and like, how do you define lead generation? And we can start with Heidi.
Wow, yeah. So I'm just glad that you're asking the question, because I'm sure most people listening would probably define those terms. If you ask 10 people in the room, they'd all define them differently. And so to me, just kind of starting with brand, it's really kind of the core thing somebody feels when they hear about your company and the services or products that you offer. And it could be somewhat based in facts that they have, but a lot of it can be emotion. To me, that's brand. And then brand awareness is something, especially in right now, we're both B2B marketers. So it's a little different with in the consumer space, but to me, it's how you stand out, right? In a sea of software, why would somebody pick a Tracker? Why would somebody pick Engagio over somebody else? Right. So it's making sure that you stand for something and that there's a relationship that you have emotionally with your buyer. Mm-hmm. And then lead gen to me is really about attracting and converting the best customers, so ultimately they're buying. And it's really making sure you have a very fine-tuned process to do that.
Okay, and Evie, does that sound kind of similar to how you would see it, or?
Yeah, absolutely. Brand awareness to me is really about, that recognition of, does your target market know who you are, and are you top of mind in that moment when they are looking for a solution? I think the emotional point is really key. I think, people do care and they want to be emotionally invested in even the technologies they use. And so can you create a brand? Is there enough awareness about the type of like culture you have? And I think on like lead gen, really lead gen is like, it's maybe something that we obsess about more, but it's really just one moment. It's like a milestone in this larger journey.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think a lot of brand awareness is establishing like what your company is and what it isn't, because we like to say as a content marketer, it's like if your content is for everyone, it's for no one. So I think that's a really important distinction when it comes to brand awareness. But today is really all about brand awareness and lead gen, which kind of makes up a full funnel marketing approach. So can you explain for the people who are watching, like what full funnel marketing really means to you and how important it is in your overall approach or your overall marketing strategy? And Evie, we'll start with you.
Yeah, definitely. I think, a lot of people, like I was saying, we all obsess about that early top of the funnel. We want to make sure people are aware of us. We want to convert into lead. And then there's this like potentially long period of time that will elapse while someone is making that decision, while you're meeting one of the 17 people who might be involved in the sale. And so full funnel marketing really sort of acknowledges the fact that it's there is a very long journey, and there are different needs at different points, and that in fact the journey doesn't end at the moment the lead is created.
Yeah, that's when the courtship begins, right? Yeah. And Heidi, how would you kind of describe full funnel marketing?
Yeah, I mean, I think to me, marketing, I think all of us like to kind of boil marketing down to like key little points or key areas. And I think full funnel is basically saying, it's a complex mix of many different things. We're ultimately trying to, like, if we use the dating analogy, we're trying to get somebody to notice us, like us, marry us and then stay married. And that's the hard part.
And be happy.
Yeah, and be happy, right? And maybe you have children and other things happen. So I think that full funnel is really having an emphasis, yes, on acquisition and yes, thinking about brand, but not stopping there. Once somebody's a customer, your brand becomes, to me, almost even more important. Those promises, you have to make sure that you're staying true to those. And how do you ultimately get more value from customers over time? And so full funnel is really thinking about all of those time points and all of the different pieces involved.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people say that the B2B marketing process is broken. So can you maybe speak to a little bit about how a full funnel strategy can fix it? I'll start with ID.
Yeah, I mean, I think having it, just if you're really kind of thoughtful about not just only focusing your dollars and people on acquisition only, saying like, okay, great, to grow in B2B, which all of us want to do, we all want to have profitable businesses, it's not just bringing on a customer, it's retaining them. So what are your programs that you have for making sure your customers are successful with your product, they're happy, make sure that you have dollars and people assigned to that. Think about upsell and cross-sell programs, like who's running that, who owns it. And I think in a lot of B2B marketing organizations, that's honestly like an afterthought from what I see. Like you go in and see a lot of companies and there's 40 people that are in the demand gen team and you're like, oh, there's Bob in the corner running the one customer acquisition program, or like he's doing references.
Right.
And that's just not going to work moving forward. So I think it's really nothing more complicated than just having a thoughtful strategy around post-acquisition.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, 100% agree with that. I would also just say if we're even looking at that, pre-customer phase, when you are in that first early stage, I think even then we still tend to just skew so far up the funnel where we're still always thinking and obsessing and spending dollars on that acquisition. And I think there's a lot that needs to be shifted in our thinking towards engaging prospects. Like this idea that, someone's going to discover your brand and then download a white paper, lead generated, check, and then they're like ready to buy. And I mean, even though we all know that doesn't work that way, I think people still operate that way and they build programs that way. And so really trying to evolve the way we market, really respect the fact that that's not how any of us want to buy a product.
Yeah. And so let's talk about tactics because, there's a lot more that goes into full funnel marketing than just brand awareness and lead gen. There's so many tactics that kind of serve as like the connective tissue to like this whole customer journey. Eddie, do you think you could talk a little bit about some of the tactics that you use other than lead gen and brand awareness?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the one that is obviously top of mind for me is influencer marketing. And I think that, I thought that was interesting that in the HubSpot study that people are really obsessed around, generating traffic. That resonates with me. Actually, lead generation doesn't resonate with me. I actually find that to be relatively easy. And what I find more difficult is how do you generate that new traffic? How do you get into new audiences? And also how do you really nurture a lead once they get to know you? And I have found that influencer marketing has been really strategic at that in different ways. And so I think the beauty of influencer marketing is that you can combine your brand voice with the expertise of somebody else, and then together tell this story that then reaches a new audience. And so from a brand awareness perspective, it's been really helpful, but also from a lead gen perspective as well. And I think as you think about your strategy with influencers, thinking about micro influencers as well, working with kind of more niche influencers can help you drive actual conversion events as well. So it's something that we definitely think about across the full funnel.
Okay, very cool. Heidi?
Yeah. So I think one of the things that we like to do is thinking about first, what are our goals? What is it that we're trying to do for a particular objective or an initiative? And then we really kind of start to think about tactics. And I love influencer marketing just because I think it's really all about being authentic. And I think people, they want to hear from people like themselves. They don't want to necessarily hear from what a company and what they have to say. So I think that that's a really good one. I think for us, we're trying to be very thoughtful about the companies that we're actually marketing and selling to. So we use account-based marketing. And for us, what I like about that is, tactics aside, whether we're doing videos or emails or direct mail or ads, I think it's how we're working. And that's one thing I'd love your viewers to walk away with today. It's not marketing and sales or even customer success in silos. Right. We're all basically saying, how can we look at a company we're trying to go after and then ultimately keep, and how are we really working on those handoffs and kind of coordinated efforts more like plays versus as just a handoff where it's like, hey, marketing created an MQA or an MQL and then they're done.
Right.
Like, I think for me, it's how we're kind of really coordinating a lot of this together. And that's what we've seen be very successful. As a tactical example, going after a company, we research the buyers. We might see that they really like football, so we'll send them a direct mail package. And then our sales team, they have an action to call. So it's like, that's a very simple, practical thing, but it works very well for us.
Because people buy from people, not from companies.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so let's see. What about like the factors that you have to have in place for brand awareness? So things like brand foundation or diverse content or thought leadership, that type of stuff. Like what are the factors that need to be in place to have an effective brand awareness program? Abby, I'll start with you.
Yeah, no, this is definitely top of mind right now, something we've been thinking a lot about at Tracker. And I think, you definitely need to have, whatever framework is going to work for you. It doesn't really matter what the framework is, but there's those key pieces you need in place. What is your mission in the world? Like, why do you exist as a company? And what kind of voice do you want to have? And what is your promise to your customers? And sort of have all of this documented in a place where not just the marketing team can access it, but actually the entire company. Because brand is like everything. It's everyone. It's an interaction between one of your CS folks and a client. It's an interaction between an SDR and a prospect on Twitter. Everybody is conveying the brand, and so I think you need to have sort of this foundational work done before you can really go out there and do more.
Heidi, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, to me, I think you really, I think, nailed it. I feel like it's defining it internally and being really clear who you are, but really clear who you are not.
Yeah.
Because you can't be, you said it earlier, you can't be all things to all people, nor should you.
Yeah.
And I think where a lot of companies go wrong, it's not very clear internally. It's like you ask the marketing department, they're like, we're customer centric. Actually, no, we're all about excitement. Like, people give different answers, and I think it's consolidate, get that agreement, and then to me, the rest of it is being consistent. And that's hard for people. It's having the self-control to say, guess what? We all agreed that these are the colors, this is our brand identity, these are our values, and we're not skewing from that. And I think that that's what's hard for people, because I think, especially in marketing, some of us get itchy, and you're like, oh, maybe we should do a new logo or a new something, and maybe that isn't the biggest problem the business has. So again, I think documentation and then being consistent, and then making sure that all the different teams are using and being true to those brand elements. And companies that do that well, I mean, infinitely are more successful.
Yeah, totally agreed. But the only thing about, well, not the only thing, but one of the things about brand awareness, though, is that like it seems a little bit like less like tangible or like easy to measure for a lot of companies. So can you kind of share like what brand awareness's impact is on the company and how you measure it? I'll start with Heidi.
Yeah, so for us, I mean, I think that there's a lot of different ways, again, that you can define and look at brand awareness. Some people, it's, they'll actually do polls for sentiment, or they'll, some people like to look at their NPS and see over time, like, how's that trending? Is there a positive kind of feeling? One of the key things for me is working with the sales team and getting a sense for them when they go into a meeting for a company that we're pursuing. If they didn't have to do a lot of explanation, who Engagio is, what we're about, I feel like we're doing a good job with brand awareness. If they have to do a lot of explanation, or there's confusion, or even for me when I'm out and about at events or at different trade shows and folks are like, yeah, so what do you do again? That to me is a sign that things are not working the way they should. And really good, strong brands, people are like, yep, I know who you are, I know what you're about. And so there's different ways to collect that data, but I think at the end of the day are you hearing back what you hope to hear? Like we were joking earlier offline about, Whole Foods, and people are like, oh, it's whole paycheck. I don't know, right? Like, I don't know that that's kind of their goal they're going after. Yeah. And for me, I'd want to know that. So that could be something.
Yeah, well, that's how you know you've made it when you're shopping at Whole Foods. Abby, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, this is probably the one place where B2B has it a little bit easier maybe than B2C. I think the things that we measure are very down-to-earth KPIs. How many media mentions do we have? How many influencer mentions do we have in a given period? Keeping track of how many people are coming directly to us and, out of nowhere, where we have no, we've cookied you, but we don't see any engagement, but all of a sudden you're popping up and you're ready to talk to us. Kind of keeping track of those types of things is a signal to us that we're achieving brand awareness.
Right, awesome. And what would you say to people who think of social media as a little bit more of a branding exercise, but not a huge lead generator? Heidi, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so I mean, I I feel like it's both. I mean, number
Yeah.
one, I think people all learn and access information differently. So I think social media is amazing, and I think it's a great way to communicate with people. It's a great way to have a perspective, a viewpoint. You definitely get a sense of a company's voice and their personality.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of ways that you can connect that to great lead gen programs. You can also, I mean, even say you're using more of a focused account-based marketing approach, you can use it for social selling. So
Yeah.
to me, like, they really, really can go hand in hand. And it's just a tactic that I feel like every marketer should be using, especially in B2B, because in a world where everyone's has, a software as a service product, how are you standing out and how are you offering help to the people that are looking for solutions to things?
Okay. Yeah, and Evie, what do you think? Do you think there's a danger in just focusing only on lead gen?
In social,
Yeah.
I think, I think if you're only putting content out there where you're asking people to click on something or download something, then you're not really taking advantage of the true definition of social,
Yeah.
which is about connecting,
Being social.
and being
Yeah.
social. And so I think you definitely need a blend. I think social. Social advertising is incredibly powerful and is phenomenal for lead gen. So you can't overlook that, but you definitely have to balance it. And really, I think the people who get the most out of social are the ones who approach it like a conversation.
Yeah. Totally.
And you should always be giving. It's almost like you don't want to be the neighbor that's always borrowing sugar. You have to make sure that you're giving back.
Yeah, I think you have to give to get. And that's actually, this is kind of a tangent, but that's why we've actually been ungating a lot of our content, because we believe that we want to provide value first. So something to think about. That could be a whole nother webcast.
Yes.
Gate or to gate or to not ungate.
That's a good question.
All right, so how should people think about the mix of brand and demand gen based on the size of the company? So enterprise versus SMB. Evie, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think, if you, maybe not so much enterprise versus SMB, but are you an emerging technology startup or are you an established giant? And I think if you have 12 months of runway in front of you, maybe investing in a 3-year brand project is not the right move.
Yeah.
I think obviously there's a lot of companies out there who have the need for and the luxury to do very specific brand work. I think if I was to show up tomorrow at Tracker and be like, we're only doing brand awareness, people would freak out, and I think our our board would be calling me and our CEO would be like, what's going on? And so it's a delicate balance. I think it also really comes down to market dynamics. Are you in a competitive market or not? If you're not, you might be able to downplay it a little bit. But if you're in a competitive, noisy market, which a lot of software players are, you have to find a way to stand out.
Heidi, what do you think?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I think definitely kind of if you're a consumer company versus B2B, and definitely kind of as Evie was saying, I think the size and just kind of where you're at. I mean, as an example, LinkedIn, an amazing brand. People know who LinkedIn is, right? Yeah, it's great, amazing. And I think when you're maybe a software as a service company, it's your second year, you're really trying to get noticed, you're trying to stand out, and so your brand strategy, it's pretty important. And I think one way people can do that's definitely through content. I know with Engagio, one of the first things we did is we did a clear and complete guide, and there's sort of our almost like a Bible around how you do account-based marketing, and then we did account-based analytics, and that's kind of been one of the ways we've got our brand across is by being sort of a trusted advisor.
Right.
And look, these are folks that have done this for a long time, and our number one thing is to help you. We don't really talk about our products or services, but this is a great way to go. And so I think that's a tactical thing that somebody could do, just thinking about the content that you put out there and the voice you use and just trying to be helpful, especially in B2B. That's a great way to establish brand.
Yeah, and you were talking about being a trusted advisor, and that brings me to kind of the next point of thought leadership, because you can't really have brand awareness without thought leadership. So can you maybe share a little bit about how you, I guess, your thought leadership strategy? I know that you mentioned a little bit of it, Heidi, but Evie, if you have anything else to share about how you guys implement your thought leadership programs.
Yeah, no, it's a really great question, and I think when we first were really getting going with Tracker, we did something very similar. We wrote the guide to influencer marketing, and I think that so often you download these guides and you're like, this is so unhelpful, and we really have always from the beginning wanted to provide value, like answer real questions that people are having, and literally be a guide that you can use and get inspired from. And I think, the work you did at Marketo in this space and now at Engagio has been like, just phenomenal. I think like when I was remembering back, like a couple of years ago, someone was asking me like, what books can I read on marketing? And I was like, you know what? You should read some of these guides from some of these companies, like Marketo and Engagio, because they're actually helpful, and you walk through exactly how to think about a strategy. And so anyway, at Tracker, that's really what we've tried to do, especially in an area like influencer marketing, which is brand new. It's not something that's traditionally sat in marketing. It's been more of a communications PR thing. So there's a lot of education to do, and people have a lot of questions. And so I think if you just always think to yourself, like, what value can I add to someone? What questions are they really asking? And can I find real answers? Then you're probably on the right track.
Yeah, I think that's what content marketing is all about. Like, we're here to discover our customers' pain points and then answer them through content. So I would say that that's one major component of like really helpful tactical content. Do you guys have any other components of content that you think make them extremely helpful for your customers and prospects?
Yeah, I'd also add, which I'm kind of contradicting myself here, but I think length is another one that I've thought a lot about.
Yeah.
I always say marketers are incredibly intelligent people, but they're busy.
Yeah.
And so I don't know anyone that, and our clear and complete guides are long. They're 100 and plus pages. And so for me, I really am a big fan of short, kind of bite-sized content where it's like, I just have a question, I just need this answered. Also, I think video is great. Like, I think even something like this that we're doing now, somebody can watch us in an hour. Hopefully people walk away with one or two things that are interesting and helpful.
Yeah.
And so I always think about the audience and what their day-to-day is like. Most of us are in meetings, we're busy. You're probably not going home and we're watching Netflix and great shows. We're not reading content. So like, how can you make it easier for people to learn and access, some things that are helpful?
Yeah, totally agree. I think that that's something that we're discovering on our team as well. Just that the shorter content is better. People don't have time. They want snackable like tip sheets and kits and like templates for how to like schedule a social media program and like just small things like that.
Right.
Evie, do you have any thoughts on how to make tactical content?
I would actually just go back to that ungated versus gated conversation, and really, like, if you have great information, like, give it out. And it's something that's so scary, and I'm definitely guilty of like that, like wanting to ungate it and then be like, well, we're not going to have all the MQLs or whatever. But it's like, you know what? We're not actually measuring our success on MQLs anymore. So why am I so afraid to let it go? And
Exactly.
But it's, I'm not going to lie, it's there, like that fear of like letting it go. But I think, we've been taking baby steps towards that, and I think it's really, it's the way of the future. Like, you just have to, if you have good stuff, put it out there, let people discover you on their own terms, and raise their hand when they're ready.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's just, in general, I think in marketing, we always have to, nothing is static. What worked for somebody 4 years ago isn't going to probably be working today, just like budgets. I love when people are like, oh, you have the same budget as last year. It's like, it's not going to go as far. Everyone in marketing understands that concept. And so I think you always have to be looking at what you're doing. Are there tweaks? Are there things that you can be doing differently? Can we, ungate some of the content, make it more accessible for people? When's the last time you guys filled out a form? When's the last time you wanted to talk to somebody? Most people want to do self-education.
Right.
And I think that there might be unique cases where maybe it's like, hey, here's a special pricing proposal or something very late stage. I'm actually okay with gating hyper late stage stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But I think early, just like give it to people. Early and mid, give it to people.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you're right. Like, people are kind of consulting I think 8 to 10 different sources before they're even raising their hand to talk to someone from sales. And like, most of the information that goes into those form fills are not right. So it's like you're just dealing with dirty data at that point.
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to switch gears a little. What do you say?
No, it's just, that's a whole other topic.
Oh yeah, I know, totally. We could go down a whole different rabbit hole about that. But you talked a little bit, or I think you mentioned something about budget. So on that note, we're going to talk about something that everyone loves to talk about, which is spend. So if you're a senior level marketer, how do you think about what you spend on lead gen versus brand awareness? Because I think sometimes people think that brand awareness, or marketers think that brand awareness is all about organic plays, and I'd argue that sometimes you just have to put paid behind it. So, Abby, thoughts?
Yeah, it's a great question. I wouldn't say that I necessarily think about our budget from like what is awareness versus lead gen, across the board. But if I just look at it in general, I would say that it really kind of naturally seems to be about 50-50. And I don't even know if that's the right place. And the more and more I think about it, and in talking, and preparing to, come here and chat with you about this, and just sort of the general evolution of marketing right now, I feel like you need to spend more creating brand awareness, and also I would just say engagement, which maybe it's that brand that's continuing the brand awareness further down the funnel. And yeah, if you take away the forms, then it's not really about this notion of lead gen that we all have today. So I can actually see more spend going towards brand, I guess, in this debate than lead gen. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. But I mean, it's so integrated, so it's difficult to kind of like parse out. So I get that.
Yeah, I mean, something that we're doing now is actually shifting spend from lead generation to lead nurturing the accounts and the leads that we've like generated. Yeah. And that was a big shift for us, and kind of exploring what is the right amount to be putting towards that. That's a work in progress, but yeah, a conscious decision to say like, we kind of have enough leads. Like, why don't we spend some time helping them get to know us?
Yeah, and then so quick follow-up question, just because I think a lot of people that are watching are not sure what exactly lead nurturing is or what like, lead nurturing tactics look like. So maybe you could share just a quick note on that. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually I will reverse what I said and say more account nurturing as well. And we use Engagio, and we take an account-based approach as well. And so I think it's interesting. You might get like one lead, for example, from an account, but then we know we're probably going to have to talk to like anywhere between 3 and 15 people. And so just staying top of mind to that account, trying to get our messages in front of that account, telling them a story across social, display, wherever we can meet you, and making sure that we are, I guess, unveiling our value props to you in a sort of logical order, I guess.
Okay. So. Yep. Totally. Heidi, do you have any thoughts on the spend?
I think it just depends on your business challenges, right? Yeah. So if you kind of are getting a lot of feedback and you see, wow, like people really don't know who we are, it's really confusing, I probably would lean a little bit more heavily on spending on brand and making sure that, we have a great brand, promise, it's clear, people know who we are. But my hope would be that they're not really that, they're not that unconnected. I think to me, any sort of demand program or account-based marketing program, I always think of brand as a wrapper around the entire thing. Yeah. It's like a great big hug you're doing, ultimately with your customer, and they should feel that from, when they're first getting to know you till when, hopefully that they've been a loyal buyer for a long time. Yeah. So again, like I think if, you're LinkedIn and everyone's like, yeah, we know LinkedIn, you're global, everyone knows you, but you still kind of have to stay true to that promise and do things that make people feel like, yeah, LinkedIn those guys are innovating. They're doing cool stuff like this show, which is great, right? So I think it's very dependent on kind of where you are and what your challenges are. And maybe for us, because we're at, younger companies, it's a lot more of like you're climbing that hill and you're trying to make sure that it's clear to people what you do, how you're different than somebody else, how you're better than another type of product or service. Right. And to me, in everything we do, we need to be consistent there.
Yep, totally. And I think just like in the conversation of organic versus paid, like this is something that we've been thinking about a lot. And typically just like for our strategy, for the things that we do, we typically, we test out a lot of things organically and then we put paid behind what's doing well.
That's
right. And then we also use our blog as kind of like a test bed for what we want to invest more in. So if we, publish something about, LinkedIn pages and tips for what to post and it like goes bananas and it gets all kinds of engagement, then we might invest in like a larger ebook or some kind of video series or something like that.
So. And paid works. I mean, anybody who's been at a company where it's like your charter is to grow or hit a number, paid works. And you can do a lot of testing where like organic is good, but you do kind of hit this threshold, and to get to that next level, like putting paid behind things that are good and you see are effective is really smart.
So I know that this is a hot topic that we were kind of talking about earlier in the green room, but a lot of our customers at LinkedIn there's a lot of interest around the prospect of rebranding. So I'd love to hear from you guys kind of what the value of a rebrand is, and when do you need to rebrand? Like when is it necessary? Because like don't break it if it's not or broken. And Heidi, I'll start with you.
Okay, yeah. So again, I think it goes back to, what is your challenge at hand? And if things are going well for you and people know who you are and the business is doing well, and I think it's kind of understanding like what your problem is. And unfortunately, I think that sometimes, marketers might have, and this is just true, there tends to be people that are very strong on the brand side and very strong on the demand side, and they're not always overlapping skills. And the key is balance. I think that's the message from today. You need both. But I think sometimes you might get people that are really kind of they lean more heavily brand. And it's like, we all get itchy. It's like, sometimes it's like, I need a whole new like set of clothes. I've never said that. No, I say that all the time. Or like, I need to redo my house, right? Yeah. And the reality is like, do you? Maybe it's working just fine. And I think to me, when you need to redo kind of like a logo or kind of have a brand rework is when there's confusion in the market or your equity in your brand is going down. Like we can all think of consumer brands right now, like JCPenney, not doing so great. Like, and I don't know kind of what the long-term prospects are there, but they might want to think about something like that, right? Like a whole new look and feel. But I think what you see sometimes is people that do rebrands and you're kind of like, why? Like why? And we were just talking about this. Zara just did a big kind of rework and I don't know. I thought things seemed like they were going just fine. But maybe they felt there was a problem.
Evie, what do you think about the value of a rebrand and when you should?
Yeah, also very close to
close to your heart.
I think absolutely you have to do it for the right reasons. It can't just be because you're new on the scene and you're like, I don't like this color. I think the times in which I've engaged in a rebrand, it's always been because the business has fundamentally changed or the buyer, like who you're selling to, has changed, and maybe that brand identity doesn't resonate with the new kind of world that you're in. I think sometimes it can also just be for very practical reasons. You can have a brand that maybe wasn't properly defined in the beginning, and so it kind of grew in all different ways, and there's not really a brand identity, and so it's like, okay, we have to like put a stake in the ground, because if you don't have those basic tools in place, like a brand identity and guidelines, then it's really hard to do actually like demand gen at scale, or if you do it, you're gonna have stuff that looks like totally crazy, and then it's gonna
just went rogue,
go against your brand, and so the brand identity really sets the sort of guidelines for everybody else to work more efficiently. So I think if you don't have that, it's a good opportunity to either refresh or establish that as well.
Yeah. Or maybe something happened in the market that wasn't favorable, right? Like you can think about this with a lot of consumer companies where it's like, like people kind of don't trust certain companies. And so maybe that's a good time to kind of go out and say, hey, we're different. You can actually trust us. Here's a new logo. But I think kind of what we're saying is there has to be some sort of impetus to make that. It shouldn't just be like, oh, I don't like the color or this, I just feel like we need a big change. And I don't think we're not talking about brand refreshes where you kind of keep things modern and you make slight updates over time.
You're iterating and staying modern. But you're not like reinventing everything.
Yeah, and I'm a big fan of doing that. And again, like it's always going to be trade-offs depending on the size of company you are and like how many resources you have to put on that. And not everyone has huge budgets to get great agencies that can make you amazing. We all would love that, but so I think it's just really identifying when there's a need.
Okay, perfect. Do you guys have any examples of brand awareness campaigns that you've run, or alternatively, examples from B2B companies that you think are running brand awareness campaigns that are successful? Maybe I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think maybe one from the outside looking in would be, I don't know if you guys remember the Twilio billboard on the 101 for a long time just said, ask your developer.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was brilliant because what it really said to me was like, we've built an amazing community of people who really understand what we do to the point where like we don't have to tell you what to do because you can just turn to somebody inside your own company and ask. And I just thought that was sort of like a perfect example. Yeah. That'd be great.
I love that too. I thought that was a really clever and it was a good one. One that I liked from the time that I was at Marketo was really around Marketing Nation. And it was really all about the focus being on the customer, being on the marketer. And marketers, as we all know historically, have been, kind of thought of as the people that, throw parties or make swag, or it's like salespeople are like, hey, do you guys have any more of those hats back there?
Yeah.
And that isn't really what, a marketer's job is maybe like 2% that on a good
I don't
day.
think my family even knows what I really do.
Yeah. and so I think kind of the sense of like, hey, we're all in this together. We're a nation of really powerful, smart people that are moving things forward, I thought was a really, really great thing to do, especially in a world where it was very competitive. There was, I think other great products on the market, but that just created like a loyalty and an affinity. And I think it's still very strong today. So I thought that worked really well.
Yeah. I think what I'm hearing too, like as we talk, is brand and community go together. Like people, you want to build a brand that people want to associate with, even in software.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, even in software.
Okay, so any, I guess, like final tips on the careful tango between the two that you have? Any tactical like takeaways for the audience?
Yeah, I'll give one. I think number one, I think we've said this a few times, but understand and identify what your challenges are, because in all businesses it can be a little bit different. And so I think it's kind of understanding and identifying clearly like what is it you're trying to solve for, and you might lean one way or another depending on what that is. Number two, I think we've decided like they very much go hand in hand. You can have like super strong lead gen programs, but if no one knows who you are, they're probably not going to work as well. So I, again, really like thinking of brand as that wrapper around everything, and just identifying clearly what your brand is and making sure that those brand elements are consistent in what you do in demand gen. I'm going to like stop there because I think that we could go on for a long time on this one, but those are some simple things. Just make sure consistency and really being clear on what your challenges are you're trying to solve for.
Okay. Evie, what's your...
I will add to that just saying I think brand and demand and lead gen need to all work together. And so my tip would be that don't ever like think of yourself as one. And like if you're, most people on this call are brand marketers, like the brand is so important to lead generation success and vice versa. And so find ways to work collaboratively together.
Okay. And then final question for you guys. So like if you had to pick one, I know the whole message is that like they work together, but if you absolutely had to pick one, which one would you pick? Because we did advertise this as a battle, so we need to have a winner.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I would probably start with product market fit. I think if you've got that, a lot of these other things kind of solve themselves. But I think, to me, brand, I think more so than ever, consumers expect authenticity. They expect you to know them. They expect personalization. And so I think if you're not telling a compelling story and have values that people relate to, you're not even going to get to the chance of demand gen. Meaning like you're not even going to get to that marriage point because no one's going to find you interesting. So I think people will probably be surprised, but I'd probably have to lean more brand.
Okay.
Yeah, brand.
Okay.
Definitely.
All right. Well, it looks like we have a winner. So if you do both, you'll see money showers apparently. Great. Well, thank you so much for being here. So we're gonna go to questions now. So I'm gonna scroll through and see which ones we shall answer first. Let's see. I think I'm getting the feeling there's a lot of small businesses on the line, so I'll go with this one first. So is it possible to increase brand awareness without having a huge advertising budget? If so, what do you suggest?
Yes, I think there is. I think it goes back to one of the kind of ideas we both had earlier. 2 tips that I'll give people. Content. Create an amazing, valuable, great piece of content. You can get that out there without a big budget. I mean, we've both done that, and it's worked really, really well. And I think you can also do a lot through video that isn't expensive. It doesn't have to be, hyper polished, hyper produced. You see everyone doing that on LinkedIn today. And you can tell a great story and really make sure that your audience knows who you are, what you're about, and the problems that you solve. So I think those 2 tactics can really work well.
I would say focus on community and influencers. I think if any marketing strategy can have an expensive version, and it can have a more affordable version. It can have a free version.
The target version.
Yeah, I mean, in my first year at Tracker a long time ago, I'm pretty sure we spent about $10,000 in 1 year, and we did so much, and we built so many amazing connections in a huge community, and we did it with content. We did it by partnering with influencers, making sure we added value to their lives in exchange for being welcomed into their community. And it was phenomenal. I think you're going to have to roll up your sleeves. You're going to have to write. You're going to have to build relationships. You're going to have to find creative ways to host events on the cheap and things like that. But it's definitely doable.
Okay. And next one, what would you recommend to convince people that brand awareness is not just putting your logo on something?
Yeah, I think it goes, and it depends who you're talking to. And I definitely can relate and feel for that person that asked that question, because I think especially if you're dealing with like very technical people, that like they're like, well, hey, here's a data sheet on my product, that should sell itself. And I think a good analogy that I like to give is like there's a lot of different kinds of jeans out there in the market. Jeans, blue jeans.
Yeah.
Why do you pick one pair of jeans over another, right? In some cases, it's the fit, but for a lot of people, it's like, oh, I really like that brand. It kind of makes me feel cool. Like other people recognize it.
Yeah.
And I think to me, good brands tell a story and they make you stand out. And at the end of the day, especially in B2B, like there's a lot of software that does a lot of very similar things. So why am I going to go with you versus somebody else? There's got to be there's got to be something that resonates. And so I think especially you can always relate it to the consumer space. Why do I buy one dish soap versus another? They're all soap.
Yeah.
I pick one, right?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, I would just have them ask that person to walk through their last purchase and why did they make it, and really get them to think about how, what influenced them.
Yeah.
Okay, next one. In your experience, which factors have had the most impact in increasing brand awareness?
I think it's definitely, it's people. Like, I think that it's when people recommend you, and you start to get that sort of effect of people talking about you and helping spread that story, when it's not just you spreading that story. So whether that is employee advocacy, influencer marketing, media, just in a community that you build, like to me
to me, it's like when your customers are telling your story.
Yeah.
And there's different places, right? Like they can obviously do it in a community or events, but it's when you yourself aren't the one always singing your praises.
Own chest, yeah. So case studies, essentially.
Yeah.
But maybe in like just different formats.
Or even
like
just
a traditional
referrals.
PDF. Yeah.
Yeah, or review sites. It's like, wow, I use this. It was really amazing. It really helped me. Or you should check out the folks at Tracker. They're great, right? When it's not, us saying it, but our customers.
Yeah. Okay. I totally agree with that. This is an interesting one. What do you think will be the next big digital platform?
Oh. The next big digital platform.
Yes.
As in like a social network?
Is Elon Musk working on something?
I'm just kidding. I don't know. Our B2B marketer is going to take over Twitch.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I think it's an interesting, definitely an interesting question, but you know what I kind of feel like? I also feel like there's really nothing new under the sun. I think things kind of take on different kind of channels and they kind of can morph a little bit, but it's to me making sure that people feel like they're getting an experience that's resonating to them. So, I mean, I would love to see a digital platform that has maybe that acts more as a hub so people don't have to have like 50 different things. So, I mean, I know historically I've been in the spot where you're managing things like on LinkedIn, you manage things on Google, you manage Facebook, Twitter, like it's a lot of different things. And it would be interesting to see, number one, more of a consolidation so you can kind of manage all of those things. And I know there's tools that do that. And then I think there could be some other innovations in video that I don't think we've seen everything there yet.
Yeah, I would agree with that too, totally. All right, how do you go about justifying allocating more budget towards your upper funnel when in short term you might not see the incremental growth?
I feel like there's just some education there.
Yeah.
I think what's hard is a lot of executives expect if I spend $20,000 today, say at a big event, where's those great deals tomorrow? And I think the hardest job as a marketer is the internal marketing that you need to do with other groups within your organization and executives with this is how this works. Yep. If I spend money today in this particular channel, digital channels work faster. We'll see that typically quicker. An event might be a little bit longer. And there's tools, that you can look at like velocity of different channels. And I think it's good to have some of that data. But it's also kind of educating people. We buy a lot of our best ad ad, kind of placement and media up front, there isn't infinite resources for all of that. So that's why your dollars over time, you don't get the same dollars that you did up front, right? It's like there is this point of diminishing returns because I spent all the best money on the best terms and the best placements. And so I think kind of making sure people understand that is a really important thing.
Yeah.
And time is a hard thing for a lot of folks. They're like, hey, I gave you this, why don't I see it?
I completely agree.
And to me, a great analogy is like planting a garden. We all want the oranges on the trees, but I've got to plant the seeds. Yeah. There's a process.
Yeah, I mean, the buyer's
gonna
journey
take time.
has just like completely changed. And it's like you were saying, it's all about like nurturing now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I totally agree. It's about the education and taking a little bit more time.
My advice to whoever asked that question would be to get closer to sales and spend time mapping out, like making sure everybody agrees and understands the process from initial interest all the way to closed won.
Yeah.
And mapping out those steps and starting to understand all of the different stages and get alignment on that so that everyone like understands, like, and then people don't really ask that question anymore because they know an event lead an event lead is going to take X number of time to close because you start to like work together on what that path
setting
looks
expectations
like.
based on like data-driven decisions essentially. But yeah, sales and marketing alignment is super, super important.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
And add executives to that too.
Okay, so what should I go to next? How should brands go about choosing a marketing agency?
Oh. So I have some thoughts on that. I think that that's a good and a hard question. And I think that could be, you could apply PR to that too. I think that a lot of agencies, I really like to talk to other people and get referrals as much as I possibly can because I feel like I trust other marketers and I like kind of hearing what people have to say there. But I also think some of it is finding an agency that understands you and works the way you want to work and kind of making sure that those expectations are clear up front because agencies they have different strengths. So I think it's really making sure like, hey, you get my aesthetic, you get our brand, you get what we're trying to do and feeling like they understand that and it's really clear what the need is up front. I think agency relationships can go wrong when those expectations aren't clear initially or maybe you kind of end up engaging with somebody that no one else has talked to you about them. Yeah. Like I really like getting references.
Okay. I think that's great advice. And so this one is also interesting. So with social, they're saying it's a great tool because everyone's on it, but like there's different messages, there's different like messaging formats for different platforms. Like you might not post the same thing you do on Facebook that you do on LinkedIn because it's just a different audience and mindset.
Yeah.
But the person is basically saying that can create brand identity problems. So how do you manage that effectively and at scale?
I mean, I think that just comes down to sort of those brand guidelines and being very clear on your tone and providing examples. I think it's pretty, it's pretty easy to think through, what that voice is going to sound like on all these different channels and think through some of those things. I think it's just really about being clear and providing guidance.
Yeah, I think it can be hard. Like at larger companies, I know some people, they're head of socials like in Europe. And then, like they might do other kind of pieces on Facebook, maybe in the US and so I think you're totally right. I think it's just kind of saying like, hey, if you're the owner of this channel, here's kind of what we do, here's what we don't do. Okay. We show these kind of images, we don't show these, right? Mm-hmm. We do product screenshots sometimes, not every day. Like I think just being very clear and documenting it.
Mm-hmm. Yep, totally. Having an editorial calendar.
Yeah.
I think is super important.
Super important.
I mean, I think every report year after year from Content Marketing Institute says that marketers are more effective when they have like a calendar and a plan and it's documented rather than just like doing it on the fly. But I get it because like my team, our calendar changes every day.
Right.
But yeah. Okay, so I have one about marketing metrics here. So they're looking for new recommendations for marketing metrics or KPIs. So essentially they're asking what is on each speaker's short list of metric tools and what's not relevant anymore in your mind.
I think the one that's like, it's there, but it isn't as important anymore is that MQL one. And it's like, it's there only because of being totally afraid of ripping off that Band-Aid, which feels like it's sort of a pulse on something. Account engagement analytics are definitely up there. And we have started to place a lot more emphasis on this notion of qualified hand raisers, which can come to us through different forms. It's not just somebody filling out a form. It can also be conversations that we're having through like website chat and things like that, and really optimizing for that. So those are some of the things.
Yeah, I think it goes back to like, what is the question you're trying to answer? And I think there's kind of early stage metrics that I like to look at as an example. If you're doing kind of more focus on accounts, do I have the right people in those accounts? Are those people aware of us? Are they engaging, right? That's kind of early stage. And then obviously later stage, we want to look at, are we getting meetings? Do we have pipeline? Are we able to, close that deal? So I think for me, there isn't ever just like one holy grail metric. It depends on your question, but I completely agree. I think that what's hard in B2B, and it's why an MQL doesn't work, it's never one human being doing one thing, right? And typically your salesperson's gonna be like, oh, this isn't maybe great, and I can't do anything with this. But a marketing qualified account is saying, hey, here's a set of people that have done the right things. They have the right titles. Oh, and guess what? They're an account we sell to. It's not Bob's Pet Store in Minnesota.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
And someone is asking us to define MQL, which, sorry that we didn't do that before. That's actually a marketing qualified lead.
Right.
So I think we've used that acronym a couple times.
Yeah.
So that is actually all the time we have for questions for today. But I love some of these that are coming in, so I might just write myself a blog post on the LinkedIn Marketing Solutions blog answering these questions. So stay tuned for that. Thank you so much both for being here. This was a super fun discussion, and thank you everyone for being on the line. Please remember to fill out the survey if you don't mind, so we can know how to make this show better in the future. And yeah, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.